Awesome. Hello, everyone. Hopefully you can see me and hear me fine. Can I just get a thumbs up from one of the guys? Yeah, sweet. So yeah, welcome to this webinar. Today we're going to be showing how Fluid SEO and Adaptify combine to create a powerful Webflow SEO suite that gets your sites live, gets them indexed, and effectively gets them set up for future growth. I'm Sophie. I'll be your MC today, and I'm part of the marketing team here at Fluid SEO. So I'll be getting you settled in, and I'll also be organising your questions at the end for a great Q&A session with our two hosts. So I'll skip to the next slide, and let's cover what's on the agenda. So first, we're going to meet the speakers, who you can hopefully see. So that's Hans and Tom. And then the guys are going to kick off a discussion about the state of SEO, where the opportunities for growth powered by SEO are, and whether that growth is for your clients, whether it's for your agency services offerings. We'll sort of jump into a few different subjects there. Then we're going to hand the mic over to Tom, and he's going to give us a demo of Fluid SEO, and he'll be showing how easy it is to conduct on-page updates based on best practice recommendations right from the comfort of the Webflow designer, using some pretty cool AI stuff as well. Then we're going to hand over to Hans. He's going to get into the long game of SEO and building out a strategy that keeps your site ranked and thriving in search results long after go live. And then, as I mentioned, lastly, we'll finish up with a Q&A session. So you are welcome to ask questions throughout the session in the chat panel. I'll get these ready for answering at the end with the guys. So a little bit about our speakers. Hopefully you can recognize them from the photos and the people in front of you. Tom is the founder of Fluid SEO. So Fluid SEO is a AI-infused Webflow app that delivers a platform for implementing on-page SEO updates directly from the Webflow designer. And we have Hans as well, with a lovely purple background and the Adaptify logo at the top. So Adaptify is also packed with a whole lot of AI. Great stuff. And Adaptify automates SEO, keyword strategy, content, and PR backlinks for your Webflow site. So thanks for joining today again. And we hope that you enjoy the session. I'm going to now hand over to the guys.
Thanks, Sophie. Thank you very much for the intro, and welcome everybody. Great to have you all here. Yeah, we'll have a little chat about some of the SEO topics that are relevant for agencies and growing your clients and growing your own agency website. But I guess quickly, first off, the reason Fluid SEO is around and a little bit of background on Fluid SEO is just because technical SEO and on-page SEO is something that everybody has to do if you're trying to build a website and grow it through organic or SEO. The technical stuff is basically the foundation that all of your other SEO work is built off. And so we can talk more about the details, but the whole point of Fluid SEO is to help with the stuff that's a little bit boring and time consuming, but it's just a necessity when it comes to SEO. So we can talk more about it, but Hans, do you want to give us a quick intro to Adaptify?
Yeah, sure. So we are basically a step after. So, you got a great site built with Webflow, and what do you do after? So you're going to have to get some content, and first thing is deciding what kind of content you want, and then the second thing is once that content is on Google and it's indexed, in 2024 you still need links. So you still need people to basically talk about your website and have a reputation. So that's the second thing we do. We kind of automated getting organic links, and also automated kind of like keyword, like finding keywords, and then also creating that content. We're going a little bit more detail about that later as well. But the first thing I want to ask you, Tom, is has anything like changed recently? Like, is there some like common advice you give almost straight away to someone? What are some common like pitfalls that people have?
Yeah, definitely. So I mean, when you ask if it's changed, stuff is definitely changing. Stuff is changing all the time, but still the most common pitfalls are the basics. It's like doing all of the standard stuff that you need to do so that Google or any kind of crawler knows what's on your website. So things like metadata, things like using keywords across your site, both in the title description and also in the content of each page, alt text for images, all those kinds of things that have been talked about for 10 years. When people ask what's the first thing I should be doing with SEO, that's still always the answer. And then I think the stuff that's changing is more around how Google is thinking about the knowledge panel and adding things like local business schema to your site, or adding product schema or review schema, things like that. That's nothing new, but it's definitely becoming more and more common for people that are trying to rank, especially if you're in like a local services business. Having a local business schema on your site is super valuable, so you can show up on the map, Google Maps, things like that. So yeah, it's a combination of things that haven't changed and just need to happen and just need to get done, that people still struggle with because they're boring or they take a long time, or maybe they don't even know that you need to do these things. And then keeping up to date with what's going on with Google and Knowledge Graph. And then I think the really interesting stuff is going to be in the next couple of years, what happens as companies like Perplexity or other search modalities come about. And obviously we don't have the answer today to what that means, but I think that's where the really interesting stuff is going to be in the next couple of years. But yeah, you're with Adaptify, you're more focused on the content side of things. Can you give us a quick overview? What is the whole idea around content with SEO? What's the point of content when it comes to SEO and Google?
Yeah, so that's actually a really good question, because you kind of have two things, which is you have things like landing pages and services pages, and Webflow is quite cool because you've got often these gorgeous templates and a lot of freedom to build these great sites. And then you have the blog, but the thing that just is true is, especially in 2024, like when most of the search traffic is kind of long tail traffic. If your customer does landscaping services, maybe people are looking for inspiration using local plants or something. Or if it's an air conditioning repair company, you've got like a segment of customers looking for an air conditioning repair company, but often also leaking air conditioning, dripping air conditioning, how to replace the remote of the battery. And then like if you become that local person, or like just that person that has that answer on the website, you start to get traffic from people that are actually asking, like, that they actually have questions that you can answer, and you can kind of build that credibility, because a lot of purchase decisions aren't made in like one go. So they might have seen a book from you and then they click through a little bit, or they see you again the next time, stuff like this. It really adds to that like kind of long tail. Some people will purchase straight away, but then you have everyone else that is not ready to purchase. And that's what content does. And you see it on most sites. It's like, non-branded content, almost nothing lands on a landing page. Like, your homepage doesn't get as much SEO traffic if you don't have a lot of branded traffic. It's really Google likes blog pages. I think a great example is, recipes. It's a stereotype, right? Like you got the life story and then you got little video and blah, blah. That stuff just works. Like try publishing a recipe without, and we don't do recipes. I mean, that's not really a specialism, but like it's a really visible example of like Google hasn't changed with that. They want more context. They want to have the best recipe, not a really short recipe. That's it. Like, so yeah, content is still really important in 2024, maybe even more so than it was before, because content is so easy to create. So high quality content.
Yeah. Do you know, I remember hearing it ages ago, but I can't remember off the top of my head the statistic on long tail versus not searches. Like what's the volume of traffic for long tail versus not? Do you know that by any chance?
Yeah, we have kind of like, this is slightly thing in the air, like, because I remember looking at this for, across a wide range of sites, but not necessarily like, we're talking about if SEO becomes like one of your traffic drivers for your customers' websites, something like 80% is quite common. Like it can be quite high because branded is only existing customers or people that already know about you, and non-branded is everyone else. So very quickly that becomes more. The other thing that's very important is purchase intent. So a long tail keyword, for example, e-commerce. If someone types in e-commerce, it could literally be a student learning about business. How to fix my Shopify website. That's probably someone who has a who has a real problem. So that it's already a little bit more likely that you can help this customer and maybe establish some kind of relationship with them very early on.
Yeah. I guess that means if 80% of traffic is coming from long tail keyword searches, that means that if you didn't have content for those searches, then you would have 80% less traffic.
Yeah.
So it's a big opportunity.
Yeah, it's huge. The cool thing though is in 2024 is it's both. As in you can't we actually check if our customer sites have a services page. Ideally, the author is displayed on the website, but then also there might be an author page. There's social outbound links, so the site exists across other platforms. Things like this. There's evidence of like customer testimonials. So these kind of things. So these are, you can also have them in your rich data as well, which is part of the technical SEO. But it's also like Google kind of knows if a website is good or not. Same with layout. You can have an ugly website and a pretty website. And like Google says they don't, but we have enough data now, including the API leak, that they do. They know if a user in a Chrome browser is spending a lot more time on a page. I think you have a little bit more about to say that as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm not sure if the audience are aware, but earlier this year, there was a leak from Google's internal documents. For the first time, I think ever, some of their internal documentation around their search APIs got leaked. And so for years and years, Google was denying that they did certain things in terms of how they ranked sites, like specifically looking at how users behave on the site and like keeping track of what people click on and things like that. They, for a long time, denied these specific actions. And then these results came, all these API docs came out, and people dived into them, and thousands of pages, and they realized that actually Google does keep track of these metrics. Hard to know if they do use them or how well they use and how important they are in the rankings. But it was the first point where everyone could finally say, okay, we can't believe 100% of what Google tells us when they tell us what to do when it comes to SEO. Super interesting. And I think all of that, the things like you said, like having testimonials or reviews, all that kind of stuff on the site, Google can infer, or breadcrumbs, for example, being able to navigate your site and making it clear both to Google, but also to your users how to navigate your site. All those things Google can infer, and it just makes things a bit easier if you tell Google explicitly how to structure or how your site is structured and what they're looking at when they're crawling your site. The other part of that you mentioned briefly was people spending time on a website. So the signals Google uses are all of the things that it can scrape from your site, but also how people interact with your website. And so, for example, if people bounce, this is one of the oldest metrics they've used. If people bounce from your website, they don't spend long on your pages. Google knows that your content was not the right content for that search query. So it's not just all of the details of embedding stuff on the site and having all of the technical setup well. It's also about having a good user experience. And I think the two come together in places like alt text for images, where that's really important for accessibility. And that's an area where Google is pretty clear what they want to see on websites.
By the way, alt text for images can be done with AI because vision is really good. But it looks like you've done your homework with technical SEO. I feel it's very important. You got say you have two identical sites, very similar profile. One has a technical SEO in order, the other one doesn't. I know which one is going to rank much higher.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
It's not like there are occasionally exceptions, but exceptions.
Exactly. And I think the way I think about it is you don't have to be doing super wild technical stuff to get your SEO to work. But if you're not doing the basics, your SEO is not going to work. That's how I think about it.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. It's really it's a checklist. Once the checklist is there, and some common sense. Although common sense is not common sense to everyone. So one thing I find, for example, site speed. I don't like using slow sites, but we have seen where we saw nearly identical sites on our platform, and one ranks well and the other one doesn't, and you go, what's the matter? And we found we have kind of a formula for this. Is if your site is slow, Google doesn't like it.
Mm-hmm.
That's one
Definitely.
technical thing, which is just get that site fast,
Yeah,
especially the blog page, because that's the actual page that Google will present. But even landing
Mhm.
pages, I think if the site is slow a little bit, like
Okay.
then things are just not going to rank.
And
Yeah.
you might have to do things differently on mobile versus on desktop as well to make that happen. Like for example, not having animations on mobile so that it loads faster.
Yeah, actually, one thing that is quite important to note, in early July, Google switched almost completely to mobile indexing.
Mm.
And the way I kind of summarize this to our customers was just focus on the mobile experience for Google, for like content, because content is what goes on. That's the more competitive stuff. Just look at
Mm.
like how fast you set a mobile, how does the blog post look on mobile. Things like
Mm.
visible CTAs is quite good. So you have the blog post and it's quite long. Typically a well-ranking blog post is long, is it easy for a customer to then maybe navigate somewhere else on the site? Stuff like that
Mhm.
is more important now than it was maybe 2-3 years ago.
Yeah.
So do you want to maybe dig in a little bit, show
Yeah.
what Fluid SEO is about? And
Yeah.
um, I'm quite
Let's
excited.
do it. Yeah, for sure. And if people have questions, feel free to throw them in the chat as we're going through here. I'll just share my screen. Let me know if this comes up.
Yeah. Thanks for asking a question, Matt. If you have any other questions coming up, just go and drop them in. Anyone else as well? It's super useful.
Yeah. So I'm sure you've all seen this screen before, or the Webflow interface before. This is Fluid SEO in the front here. Super cool having apps in the Webflow Designer nowadays. Don't need to use janky Chrome extensions to try and make things work. Get a lot more access to what you can do under the hood with Webflow. So really happy to have Fluid SEO in the marketplace. I'll dive into a couple of the features. I won't go through the whole product, so feel free to check it out yourself. But I mentioned a few things like titles and descriptions on pages and alt text. So alt text for images. I'll start with alt text for images. We were saying before, a lot of people tend to kind of forget, or it's just too time consuming to do some of these small detailed tasks. So in Webflow, for example, if you wanted to add alt text images, maybe folks in the audience already know this, but you have to kind of go through and click on each one and then type something into the box and then go to the next one. So it's a time consuming, slow process. So at SEO, the whole point is make these things easy. So give you one pane where you can see all the images on the site, and then you can just quickly select a bunch of them, hit the generate button, and it goes away, talks to the internet, and like Hans was saying, use some AI to work out what's in the images. And if you like what comes back, you can just save it and save them all together. There's one button up here that'll save them, or you can edit. Let's say this is in Sweden, for example, this flock of seagulls, and then you can save them all at once. So huge time saver. Filter by images that don't have alt text, so you can narrow it down and just find all the ones that don't have alt text. So this has been a big fan favorite. One thing that Fluid SEO does that I haven't seen anyone else do is work in the CMS. So not only images on your static pages, but if you have images in your CMS, they also need alt text, and Fluid SEO can help with that too. I won't demo that just because it looks pretty much the same thing. Titles and descriptions, again, if you, as Webflow folks, you all know this, but if you want to edit the titles and descriptions for your pages, it's a bit of a pain going in and typing in those boxes, clicking on all these really small icons, saving them all. Again, having one place to do that, so one pane that has all your pages in it, and rather than having to type stuff, again, a little button goes off, talks to the internet, comes up with a suggestion for you. This will go and read the text that's on the page and use that to come up with a suggestion for a title and description, taking into account how long it should be. If you make it too long, let's see how long it needs to be. It'll tell you, oh, that's too long. So took into account how long it should be. You can add keywords. So if you have keywords for your pages, it will use those keywords in the title and description as well. The one last thing I'm going to demo today, and then everybody else can jump in and check it out for themselves. But the one last thing, this is something we launched this week. So very excited about site audit. One of the best things you can do before launching in terms of SEO is doing a little audit just to catch all the issues that might be on the page that Google's not going to like. So Fluid SEO can do that for both CMS pages and also static pages. It goes through and checks a bunch of stuff like, for example, we didn't save the title for this page, and so there's no title there. Things like the headings, have you got duplicate H1s for the images? Again, telling you that there is some alt text missing. Have you got broken links? So there's a whole bunch of checks in here. The thing that we're trying to do with Fluid SEO is make it so that not only do you do an audit, it tells you what's wrong, but it gives you a button to fix it. So if you were to use SEMrush or Ahrefs, for example, it'd tell you that there's no title on this page, and then you would have to go and find the page and type in a title. So that's the whole goal with Fluid SEO, is to make it so you can both find out what the problems are and then fix them. Yeah, I'll leave it there unless, Hans, there was something else you thought I should demo here. I figure something nice and quick to show people the power of Fluid SEO, but this is what we're trying to do to make technical SEO easy and simple in Webflow.
Yeah, I love that your tool is so easy to demo. Like it is exactly what it is.
Yeah, that's what it says on the tin.
Yeah, sounds really cool. Shall I kind of continue from there?
Please, yeah. So once you've got technical SEO set up on all your site, on all your pages, then what's the next step?
And I can answer this by sharing my screen. So indeed, you got a beautiful website. You got all your services pages up, and then to get to that 80%, to get that based anything non-branded really, you're going to need to start ranking on the keywords that your customers care about. So we are a fairly straightforward platform. We do articles. The main thing we do is articles and content. So what we do is you upload every single customer site individually. That means that every single customer you can kind of have different settings for, configure in different ways. We support Webflow. We also support other platforms, and every site is its own little project effectively. And the way it looks when you click on a site, for example, another agency, is something like this. So there's a little checklist. You can see the performance. You can see the backlink pitching effort, like the amount of pitches that are sent and what's in progress. And you can also see the content calendar, which is content that we're planning to publish for you. Now, I want to dig in a little bit deeper in some of these things. One of them is the one-click publishing. One reason why we love Webflow is behind the scenes, Webflow is technically quite strong. So their CMS, I know it can be a little bit unintuitive to set up from Webflow side, but once you have that up and running, it's very robust. And we have a plugin in the Webflow store that connects and also automatically, without any effort, automatically pushes the blog post that we create with all the metadata and everything straight away synced to your site. And because it's so deeply integrated, it's virtually error-free, which is quite nice. Second thing I want to show you is the content plan. So I want to dive a little bit deeper into this. So how does this work? And why would you do something like this? Thing that we found out is if you want to rank for anything on Google, you kind of have to do a similar process. You see all the good SEO agencies have this process, and all the large companies have this process too. First thing is basically keyword research. So we have an interface, which is the keyword cluster interface, where we find keyword clusters for you. We know that you know your customer sites better, so it is fairly easy to just add a new cluster and add your own keywords, import your own keywords. But by default, we're just going to give you a list as good as possible. We use SEMrush data for this. We also use a few other data sources to really make sure that the data is as good as possible. And the way it works is we kind of start with groups. So you've got these clusters, which are kind of almost like mini goals. Typically, they're linked to like a services page or your home or your customers' home pages. And we try to find really good articles. Now, once you have this, we're going to cycle through these and publish articles at certain times. we are kind of these frequencies, so it's manual. You can go and maybe blast out a few, especially with a new website. You want to launch it maybe with some content, or if it's running daily, where every workday we do the research, we create a plan, and we publish this article. This is really good because SEO is a long-term game. It's not a one-off thing. It's this constant, repetitive. Like you have to keep going at it for a while, and that's really where we see the results. And that's why AI is quite good, because you have to be a little bit creative. You have to write good content, you have to find good keywords. That is thinking time that you have to hire people for. AI does this really well. This kind of forced creativity. That's what we really like about using this platform, why we built this platform. So say, for example, on July 26th, we want to create this article. We have this keyword. We have a few added keywords that are very similar, but we also want to rank for. What we do is we actually follow a very similar process that you would do before AI, which is first, let's go do some research. Let's look on social media, or let's read some documentation. Let's read what is ranking high on Google. Let's find some similar keywords. So, we kind of go through 10-ish sources, and then we start drafting an outline. The other thing that we also start to take a look at, like, what is the search intent? What kind of format of article are we going to use? Double checking, are we linking competitors to competitors or not? Most customers don't want competitors mentioned, but in some markets it's actually really good. And then we'll write the best title, better than anything else, and we create an outline that is more in depth than any other article that is ranking on Google for this keyword. Creating an article takes a few minutes, happens behind the scenes, can also be fully automated. So every morning there's an article ready for you. A created article could look something like this. We add images, we add infographics. We all find these for you. You can also upload your own, like, a little library of your own images. And we basically start writing a really well-researched article with inbound and outbound links. And what you'll see is this doesn't read like ChatGPT content. We're really obsessed with making our article writer actually pleasant to read. It's well-researched stuff. It's been through a bunch of steps, and this stuff's actually as useful as we can make it. And you might go, but well, it's now published to my site fully automatically behind the scenes. I haven't seen it. I haven't reviewed it. Well, you can totally. We know, like, if you hire a writer, for example, to write an article for you, you want to review them. We actually realized if you can have AI check AI, the accuracy increases a lot. So we run, depending on the article, between 15 and 20 checks. Stuff like, does it mention competitors, or does it have the correct subheadings? And if it fails, we'll just ask it to regenerate that section again. Having two different language models check each other increases accuracy a lot. And I think this is quite fun because it's AI checking AI, which I think is is the future. But where maybe we had an error rate of like a few percent before, this like 100x the error rate down. But the philosophy that we have when using AI is maybe a little bit similar to like the self-driving car thing. It's like it will fail sometimes, and sometimes it just it's a keyword that is just, it doesn't perform, like it just doesn't create a good article, or your customer is a lawyer or something like this, where the checks are a little bit more stringent. Then we have an actual editor review it. So we have a small editing team, and they check every day the articles that failed. It does delay the article with a few hours, but it allows us to create content that is as high quality as it gets, really. Typically, this beats humans because it's more reliable. It makes actually less mistakes, and the quality of the article is very high, and it ranks really well. You can see here, these are genuine numbers. You can kind of see that SEO is always a little bit difficult. But we see almost all websites. You see this kind of trend of like impressions going up quite significantly. So that is really the content piece. The other thing that I think is quite interesting to take a look at is, so how does PR backlink building work? Well, you might, if you're an agency owner, you might know you can purchase links. That's okay. They sometimes work, but the problem is Google in 2024 started indexing a lot more stringently. So any article that just doesn't really answer anyone's questions, Google stops indexing it. And then it's not a backlink. If Google doesn't know about it, then it doesn't work. So we just pitch to journalists and writers on your behalf, because you've got a copy of your website, we know what you want to rank for. And we also ask you to set up a little backlink profile with maybe a mini interview with your customer and a few more details. This is not required, but it is very helpful. And then we just start reaching out to the journalists, and we'll send them a little pitch based. There's journalists share a lot on the internet. There's a bunch of platforms that we use, like Haro and a few others. And you have larger companies have humans do this, and they might send out one pitch or like 10 pitches per month, and maybe one gets placed. We send out 100 pitches per month, and to be honest, our placement rate is not a lot lower. So we'll probably place 3 or 4 links. This works quite well, and also some of these quotes are actually quite good, because you might actually have some unique insight shared on your website. It's quite common that in these backlink profiles, I generally see people that like something like you manufacture rugs or something. This is something that not a lot of rug manufacturers are talking on the internet to journalists. So you get mentioned a lot, and you get a lot of really good backlinks. You're talking about like tier 1 kind of backlinks. This is an example, like generally like entrepreneur.com. We have agency owners often they get mentioned by stuff like this, Forbes, Yahoo, stuff like this. Quite often, a few of these links, and SEO suddenly becomes really easy, which I really like. So that's just a quick overview of our platform. I am aware I took a little bit more time than Tom about this. One cool thing about Tom is his business is a little bit easier to explain than mine. So yeah, that's kind of the context. And that's really like Adaptify in a nutshell.
Yeah, super cool. Thanks for sharing. I think I was thinking earlier today, like the two ends of this SEO game of like getting the fundamentals right and then continuing to make content. That's really, and like getting the backlink, like this whole getting backlinks thing. If you can get both of those right, then you see amazing results like you showed here. Like
Yep.
that's basically all there is to it when it comes to SEO, unless you want to get wacky and start doing some black hat stuff or like trying to be outgame the algorithm. But I wouldn't really recommend that as an SEO practice,
No, like like basically doing anything that is not in line with what Google thinks is you're on borrowed time.
Yeah.
So having a journalist mention your customers, that's great, because that is genuinely content. And but if you get you purchase a link and Google knows that this site is now used heavily by purchase links, then it might not get indexed anymore, and then you're back at square zero. Like you typically don't like lose your site doesn't get banned, and that doesn't really happen as much, but it just to have no results, and no results mean customers don't pay you. So yeah, same with just creating lots of content in ChatGPT. It's used a lot now. Low quality content does not rank in 24. It just doesn't. So yeah, you need to create higher quality content, and the content that we try to write, yes, if you create 10 articles, 1 or 2 are maybe a bit meh, but there's one or two of these are really good. What I mean with meh is that just maybe not super interesting to read, but they're still maybe the subject is also not super interesting. That can also happen, but occasionally we get a bit good.
And to compare that against human writers, it's going to be the same or maybe even worse. Like, yeah,
that's our benchmark. Our benchmark is not necessarily like every single keyword you can write a banger for. It's much more like, do you know if your customer is going to rank for this keyword? Know that, and how much traffic you're getting. That's already amazing data. There are some keywords, but then you might want to add a few more edits and maybe put maybe like a custom component in it. Especially if it gets quite a lot of traffic, you might actually want to make sure that the CTA is very clear. But any article that doesn't rank, not everything ranks. It's a bit random. Most experts will tell you that. You got your you got that data, which I think is really good.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. Should we jump to questions? I see Matt asked the question in the chat. Or Sophie's back. Hey, Sophie. Oh, you're muted. We got to unmute you. I'm not host. Yeah.
There we go. Awesome.
Yeah, if anyone else has
Matt did ask
questions.
a question. There is one in here, so I'll read it out just in case anyone hasn't read it. So should I let my help articles be crawled? If I add schema to my help articles, will this help them show up in Q&A? I'm guessing they mean in the search results. Just thinking about your example about how do I fix my air conditioner or Shopify site.
Yeah. So I'm interpreting if I add schema to my help articles, will this help them show up? I'm thinking like in the FAQ at the top of Google, for example. So yeah, definitely. Should I let my help articles be crawled? I think it depends a little bit on what the content of those help articles is. If it's very specific, like press the purple button after pressing the green button, that might not be super helpful. But if it's more general around, yeah, help articles around how to fix your air conditioner. Totally, that stuff is valuable to have indexed by Google because it builds authority on the topic for you and your site. And the schema question, definitely. So if you, for example, had a good answer to how do I fix my air conditioner, and you put the FAQ schema on that page, then Google can really easily interpret that and show that answer up at the top in one of those little drop-down boxes or in like a little search snippet, helping people to answer that question very easily. And then Google will usually link to where they get that data from, so they can go and find your site. Did you have any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, also these Q&A things actually often come from long form content. So and also they're quite quick. We've seen articles rank in minutes there. So it's kind of Google. It's almost like an alternative search results page. So it's kind of like you have two shots. You have your URL below, or you can get mentioned in the Q&A. Q&A might not click through as much. The answer is presented there. But especially if it's in a context like you write, like how to fix my air conditioner or like surplus side, these are really great to be featured in the Q&A for. Help articles could do that. You can also potentially turn these help articles into full articles. Because yeah, Q&A often comes from longer articles. For example, I remember a cocktail recipe, for example, how much lemon juice goes in a margarita, and then these answers will often have the full recipe, but it will just say, like, I don't know, it's a third. Anyway, that's not the subject of this webinar. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so that's often featured from a much longer article. The Q&A is not always articles.
Yeah, for sure. And you can combine the two. You can have, for example, schema on your blog pages or your long article pages. If you are delivering that kind of answer or that kind of content, then doing both is really valuable, I think.
Yeah. I just dropped another, like basically any other questions? Does anyone else want to ask a question?
Write in the chat if you got something else you would like to know.
I mean,
Niels,
I've got a question for Hans.
Niels has a question for us.
Yeah.
Oh,
I guess you
Niels,
could always
I
raise your
was
hand.
trying to unmute.
Okay.
All right, thanks, guys.
Yeah.
So I'm from a very specific niche, poker, and when we try to make articles with like the language models, ChatGPT, it comes out very generic and kind of behind the curve. But we do have like dozens of top poker players behind us that can create like the kind of the core content, but that is like really like innovative and like that people enjoy reading, but they are not copywriters. They have no clue from which keywords we want to go for. So let's say we have like a rough article, human written. How do we start from there to then use AI and other tools to get it to like a proper technical SEO article?
Hans, do you have something in mind?
Yeah. So there's a few things. So first of all, having really good authors is great. Google really cares about authority. It's called an EAT update, where like so if these poker players have other social media profiles, make sure that it's linked from there. Ideally, there's a literal like, hello, I am the author and I am this, with like a link to all their social media. Like, make it very obvious to Google that this person is writing an article. That's first, because then you kind of bring that authority along. Also, make sure that the blog article, like the actual author on Webflow, is that they're added as an author name, stuff like that. This also goes back a little bit to the metadata. That's the basics. The second thing is, there's two things. So if you don't know if the effort is worth it, so you got like basically some poker things, some poker content ideas, I would say write almost like give it your best shot, like research them. But the first thing is just get a bunch of articles out. So time box it, get them live. I think it's much better to get a bunch of articles out first and see if they get ranked. Even if they're quite low, to see if they get indexed, stuff like that. That still means you have to put in some effort. You have to find images, you have to put some internal linking, some external linking. And you can use ChatGPT. You can kind of create your own outline. Use some research, use some quotes, and then maybe a relevant YouTube video, and then ask ChatGPT to kind of make that a real article. You don't have to make it super long and wordy. Just see in Google Search Console if that gets indexed. Then once it gets indexed, then you can kind of go, shall I rewrite this to be like a skyscraper, like a number one piece of content? So, because you might have a shot at it, but it really depends on like how well, for example, especially with poker, some of the top domains will be very, very good domains. If your domain is not as good, for some keywords you just won't rank. So then it's not worth the effort. It might be on page 17 or nothing. So that's the first thing I would look at, which is like, can you get ranked to like 10 or 20 keywords? Approach the kind of find out 10 or 20 or maybe even more keywords, and then just push content live, see if it gets indexed, if it gets picked up, where is it, and then check the first. Ideally, you've already checked if the first page of Google is not too competitive. If it isn't, then kind of make sure that your content is better in the first 2 or 3 articles. That's how I would approach it. So it's slightly more holistic. Think about multiple articles. Don't think about a single article. Really rely on the credibility of the author and do it iterative. So get some content live, check if it gets indexed, and then rewrite it if it's at the top, and to get it to the top.
A couple of things that I'd add to that, Hans. Maybe sort of the before and after of your process. So do an audit on the site and make sure that everything is set up how it should be, so that Google's going to be okay with it and that it will get indexed. And then have a little, you may have already done this, but have a think about the keywords that you're trying to target. So go and do some research and see how competitive are those keywords around the poker sites, because I can imagine, like Hans said, there's going to be some pretty competitive keywords, but there might be some opportunities for ranking on some less competitive keywords. And then having really authoritative authors can help you rank for those. Yeah. Oh, he's muted again. I don't know if Niels had something else you wanted to say.
One more follow up on that. Like you said, like it's smart to put a bunch of articles out there, but like, how much is too much? Because if it feels like it's like every day a full article, it kind of know it's AI based, and then it loses a bit interest from the poker community. I see it from other poker trading sites that send like twice per day an email, like a super long email written that is clearly by ChatGPT, and then it just ends up being like in the spam folders eventually. So how much is too much in terms of frequency?
Yeah, that one I can actually answer with some data. So we run experiments. So there's a few things. Emailing people articles you generate, I don't really see that's not really part of SEO. So I would say that's kind of separate. Content quantity, we've done experiments. So we went from like, it was quite expensive because our articles create a lot of queries to create, but like we were just like, let's just create 200 articles and push them live. Google kind of has a crawling budget. So a site of a certain size, for example, a site that currently has 30 pages and maybe a domain reputation of like, like 12 on like Ahrefs. That site doesn't have a really high crawling budget. A site like a news site like Fox News, for example, will have a really high crawling budget. Google will refresh it quick and often and will have all the pages indexed. But a site with 30 pages, if you suddenly go to 3,000 pages, it will just not index most of it. The second thing is quality markers. So any content you push live needs to have some certain amount of content. That takes effort. That's also insert plug for my tool. That's what our tool does. But like the content has to be of a certain quality. So it has to be somewhat researched. It has to have good links. It has to have some rich media. It has to also generally be ideally unique content. So it has to have like a new angle to this. That does require work. A number that's pretty good is like 1 a day. If you double that to 2 a day, that's still fine. These are kind of rookie numbers for Google. Like you have web shops that launch, for example, even a small local web shop, a coffee roaster, they might just launch 10 new types of beans. That's 10 pages. Poof, they're there. If you add 10 content items to your site, Google is fine with this. Just be aware that there's a crawling budget. So if you start doing 10 per day for a long time, especially if the first 10 are not picked up, then the next 10 are definitely not going to pick up. Maybe if it picks up 2, then the next one might pick up 1, and then the other 10 will pick up 0. But if you publish 10 articles and they're high quality and they're all indexed, or like you can see this on Google Search Console, if like 8 out of 10 are indexed, if that rate is above 50%, I know if you then publish another 10 like this, they'll also get indexed. So we aim to have an average indexing rate of above 50% for all content we create. That's a really low grade. Typically, we're more like 80, 90%. So the kind of article that I just showed you in my screen recording, that would get indexed because it's in-depth and researched enough. And technical SEO matters a lot too. Site has to be fast, site has to have all the metadata, it has to have everything correctly labeled and set up. The blog needs to be easily navigatable. Stuff like this is also important.
One other thing I would add around the link budget, another thing that grows the link budget is traffic. So usually sites that are bigger have more traffic, but not all. But if you get more people to go to the site, Google then knows to index your site more regularly and spend more link budget on your site. So that's definitely something to try and do if you can.
That's a good shout. Like traffic equals more budget is pretty easy to understand. You're right.
Yeah.
Cool. If you have any other questions, Niels, just drop it in the chat. That was really useful. It was a great question. Sophie, you had a question.
I did have a question, but it's like almost loosely been answered, but in the context of poker, which is totally fine. But yeah, my question was really just around what your thoughts are around content saturation. If it is so easy to generate these articles, at what point does Google start picking up the AI call cards? And I've got to say, I'm really impressed by Adaptify AI and the fact it really doesn't read like ChatGPT. So I'm not going to ask you for your secret sauce, but I am going to ask you what you think about the subject of it. And yeah.
No, you're right. This has been on top of our mind. Well, it was more before because now we kind of cracked it. It's a bit less. But one funny thing is if you're in front of your computer, type in Beethoven, the composer on Google. The first image is AI generated. Google doesn't care if things are AI or not, because also we don't care. I don't know about you, but I use AI quite a lot. I ask it like, oh, I just wrote this email. Can you make it friendlier? And then it does that for me, which is quite useful. Stuff like that. Like we use it. We're okay with it. A 100% AI generated article is low quality content. So the only time that ranks is if there's nothing else better on Google. In 2024, there probably is, so it won't rank. So that's the main thing you kind of have to look at it. Like if no one has ever published an article on air conditioning repair, a ChatGPT article will rank #1. The thing is, there's probably already a few articles out there, and the human written articles from a few years ago are probably worse than, a well-researched, decent outline, bunch of quotes, then generated, making sure it uses the tone of voice in the website. Like an actual human didn't write the final sentence is not really the issue. And doing that kind of content is actually still hard. It took us a while to crack this. And we still can't do it at insane numbers. We can't do it at 3,000 pages per hour, for example. That would be, there's just too much happening. Like you have to run 10 scrapes. They have to come back. It takes time. So yeah, that's my main answer. Low quality content doesn't rank because there's already better content out there, not because it's AI generated or not. OpenAI had launched an AI checker. They removed it because it's really hard to check AI. And it's also quite futile. Like Google doesn't seem to care. They've not cared about it in the last year. They kind of seem to be okay with it as long as the quality is good. If it gets traffic, basically.
I've also seen a tweet from one of the Google search folks saying the same thing, that they don't care that it's AI generated, they care that it's quality.
Yeah. Just like if you get an email from someone and it says, hello, in this ever-changing world, blah, 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 let's delve into this. You don't want to read that, like some kind of ChatGPT email. But if someone has spell checked an email to you and it's by AI versus the email has a few huge spell checks, I'd say I appreciate the AI enhanced one more. So it's all about how you use it, really.
Awesome.
And we have the same thing in FluidSEO that we use AI to generate content, but in the end, it's not about whether I wrote it or the computer wrote it for me. You can review it, you can edit it if you need to, you can make changes if you need to, but in the end, it's about having a piece of text that represents what you're trying to say.
Yeah, same with you indeed, right? Like Google might already know the subjects of these images, but if you tell Google that you've done your homework, and like also that doesn't look super, like to me it looks like if you ask 10 humans to describe that image, you get exactly the same stuff. Then you ask GPT Vision or something similar to do that. So yeah, it's just how you use it.
Yeah.
Awesome. We've had one lucky last question come in, and then it probably takes us up to closing time. So, can a good level of prompt engineering help to overcome generic AI content, for example, tone of voice and archetypes for brand/business?
I can answer this quick, and I think Tom, you could probably add a few more notes because you've also done this. So yes, prompt engineering is kind of interesting because the best prompts are like super short prompts that are very intuitive. We've like some base prompts leaked, like the prompts that are on top of ChatGPT, for example, and they're really like how humans talk, or they're not too complicated. So there's no easy hack. There's not like, oh yeah, you have to add this word to it and it will trigger it. The main thing that you wanted to do is break it down into chunks. So don't ask it to generate an article. Give it an already written article and ask it to fix the spelling or fix the grammar or add an example. We'll not get it into this kind of generic tone. By the way, the generic tone is kind of how the internet talks. So it's trained on previous data. So if you don't give it enough data, it will go back to generic. So give it way more data. Write an article and then have it also write an outline and add some notes, and then just ask it to write an introduction of this. We'll probably give you a pretty good introduction, but if you just ask it to write the whole article in one go, it will go back to generic because it just doesn't have enough information. The other thing is, if you haven't, so 4.0 is better than older ones. And cloud is quite good too. So you can also try, like, make sure you use the latest language models as well. They're slightly better. And don't over prompt. That's kind of the two things as well. Yeah, Tom?
Yeah, I'd say,
some stuff
my only additions to that would be you could definitely come up with something that works well and meets your needs, I think. The reason tools like Adaptify and FluidSEO exist is you can for sure do it yourself. But the workflow and having to copy and paste between here and there and spend the time every time the model changes to update your prompts and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, I think there's some secret sauce in the things we're doing, and then there's a bunch of stuff that's not super secret sauce. And the reason tools like FluidSEO and Adaptify exist is to try and just make your life easier, basically, so you don't have to think so hard about it and spend as much time on it. But definitely you can get better results if you spend a bit more time thinking about the prompts and giving it the context around tone of voice, all that kind of stuff.
Yep, fully agree. Great question to kind of answer, like to kind of wrap this one up on. So thanks, Ashley.
Yeah, thanks,
Is there
Ashley.
any other questions? Cool.
I think that's it.
Feel free to reach out anytime if you do have questions. Happy to answer over email or in YouTube comments or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, thanks again everyone for joining today. Thanks guys for such an engaging session. It's been really good. We've used it all the time, which is awesome. So yeah, both the tools, if you are interested, they are available on the Webflow App Store in the marketplace. They both have free trials, so you can give them a spin today if you want to. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed the session. Feel free to scan the QR codes or just head to their websites. That's fluidseo.app and adaptify.ai, and we'll hope to see you again really soon. Thanks again, everyone.
Thanks, Sophie.
Cheers.
See ya.